What's up, everyone? We're back, the American crew. We got a full house today. If you're looking at this at the screen, we got four panels. Today we have a guest with us. It's Chris, who you're familiar with if you've been listening to the Spaces recently. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad, Alex. Thank you guys for having me on. Really appreciate that. And well, looking forward to talking about the BC, not as much the FC, you know how it is now. But yeah.
As per usual, we have Antoni and Alki. Antoni, what's up?
Hey man, this was a unplanned drop in, but with everything going on, I had to drop in. I had to.
And you, Alki?
I mean, we've all been better, I guess we could say, but I mean, a lot to unpack with such a just two games, but a lot to unpack still. So,
Yeah, so it was kind of like a weird week, like kind of to sum it up, following Wednesday, which obviously our Australian friends already reviewed that, Burdello that went down went down then. We were kind of feeling very down for obvious reasons. Mathematically, we were still in it. We were basically needing AEK to do us favors in terms of negative results. We needed them to lose one game and draw one game at the very least in their last three games. And that was kind of a tall ask considering one of those three games was against Lamia for them, that being the final game of the season. So for, understandable reasons, we were feeling down after Wednesday, mathematically still in it, but chances were very low. Roll on to Sunday. We're still feeling bad, but kickoff, we're feeling a little better because we find that PAOK is actually doing us a pretty big favor because they were actually holding AEK to a 1-1 draw at the time. Their game had started an hour prior to ours, so it was halftime there when we kicked off. So we had gotten like a boost of hope from that game of interest there. I guess that's where we started kickoff on Sunday, and we'll just get into the game now. So, I mean, from minute zero, we were feeling good. At minute three, we were feeling fucking bad, basically, long story short, because we conceded in the second minute, which has been a thread in the playoffs. Now that's 6 out of 8 games in the playoffs where we've conceded first. And not only have we conceded first, but a lot of those have come in the very early goings of the game, second minutes, fourth minutes, fifth minutes, 10th minutes. It's just been a common thread. But yeah, we went down early 1-0. And that's the score line for the rest of the game. There were chances. We ended the game with about 20 shots total. I think about 11 or 12 on goal. So we had chances, but it still felt like nothing of great significance. We didn't look very threatening. It was one of those games where, despite padding the stats, we kind of deserve to lose 1-0. I don't think we deserve to score a goal even with those 20 shots, but that's just kind of the play by play quickly. I'll jump to you guys. There's three of you, so anyone who wants to start, go for it.
I mean, I guess I can start there. I mean, there's two sides to this. Obviously, I think ultimately just the first side, just giving context, we all knew coming into it, like it wasn't going to really come down to whoever's going to drop points. Unfortunately, Ike did end up dropping points, but so did we at the same time. So we didn't really take advantage of it. But it was gonna be a tall ask in the sense of our placement. Trying to go basically having to go undefeated in the playoffs realistically, like we mentioned. And you've said it before, Alex, like it's just a huge hill to climb. Wasn't that realistic. It was possible, but not really realistic. But the other side to it is not only did we kind of drop points, but it feels like back-to-back weeks just lack of urgency, lack of desire. Like the team just looked flat, like they didn't want it. I don't know if there's a backstory to it. Did we put too much going into relying on the cup and not as so much playoffs because it was going to be kind of a bigger hill to climb? Like there's just so many different angles you could take to it. But at the end of the day, the team that we saw the last 2 weeks was just not the team we've been seeing build up and even really crazy, like unlikely situations, like with the cup games, winning shootouts and playing guys out of position and they're still playing great, things like that. Like we saw the complete total opposites, like the teams flipped 180 degrees. And it's just sad, man, because we built up all that momentum and we know we're not the best team on paper or what we've shown, but we've shown heart, and the last 2 weeks is not that. So
Yeah, I wanted to also add to what you were saying about how the flip of the script, you know, like we had come off that 5-0 win versus Lamia. I was gassed and I was like, all right, this is, you know, this is the shit. We're improving. You know, last year we were steadily getting worse and it just felt like we were just going to run out of energy. This year we were getting better. So I thought going into that eye game, I mean, me and Alex, we helped on the space and we were so confident. It's embarrassing looking back on it now. We were saying 2-1, 3-1 is putting it lightly, and that we're playing, we're the favorites basically with how we're playing right now. And it just goes back to starting like crap, you know, with ARIS. I hadn't even turned on the game. I was a minute late and I saw they scored and I was like, wow. And just, we looked so flat for the whole first half, to be honest. We created a few chances, but again, not much to win. I mean, you had that one huge chance with Spore. I'm sorry, you got to be scoring that. You know, like you cannot be missing from that range. It's just it's simple. You know, you buy a striker to score those. You know, LKB he would score that. You know, so you buy a striker to do that, and it's just a shame because, I mean, literally we're Monday now, and if we spoke Monday last week, we would all have smiles on our faces and be saying, yeah, this is it, and it's just changed so fast. Two losses as well, may I outline? Not even two draws. We've had 5 draws and 7 losses. 7 losses is a bit ridiculous. This is the thing. If we had dropped points on 12 different occasions, okay, fine. But try draw maybe 8 of them or lose 4 or something. I think we lost 5 games at home. That's unacceptable in my opinion. And if you look at AEK, I saw this today, they've not lost at home. And as good as we've been away, I think we've been the best team away. Great, kudos. But you've got to fix your problems. You know, you can talk about what you're doing well, but you've got to fix your problems. And losing 5 games at home in a season that's not even finished yet, by the way, is unacceptable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, those are really, really good points, Chris. Like you could see the kind of like the mirror from last season of how you could kind of just feel that we were starting to fizzle out. This season, it was a little bit weird in the playoffs because we were starting to gain some momentum. And honestly, I'm not even just saying this. When we lost to AEK, that's when I'm like, yeah, I think it's over. Like the team is just, I mean, I'm not gonna point fingers or anything, but this is just a mentally weak team. Like that's just what this showed me. I mean, you lose 3-0 to AEK. Again, AEK are probably arguably the best offensive team in the league. And I just knew it. I mean, we go into Sunday, and I'm like, ARIS, knowing us, we're gonna lose the game, right? After that AEK performance, we go in, we early goal again, we concede to ARIS, and it's just showed there's lack of discipline, there's a weak mentality, in my opinion, and it's just like this divide. I don't understand. We saw some of the similar things under Jovanovic as well, where to me it's a player issue. Because look, we've gone through 2 coaches and we're seeing a lot of the same amateurish mistakes again and again and again and again. It's, you know, it doesn't take a professional footballer to know, keep your composure, especially within the first 5-10 minutes of a game. I mean, how many times have we conceded a goal within the first 5-10 minutes of a game in these playoffs? I mean, you had just mentioned the stat, Alex, it was 6 out of 8 games. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And I mean, we can point the finger at the coach, but as a professional player, you should know better to keep your composure at the back. It's as simple as that. And you concede all those goals early on, and eventually it's going to catch up to you. And look, it caught up to us again. And it's every season, especially the last few years. I mean, last year and then this year, where we can't blame anybody but ourselves, right? We dropped the points against last Wednesday. Must win game against ARIS, which we should have, you know, in the game itself. I mean, we deserve to lose, but on paper, we should have won the game. and it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just, I see it time and time again, and it's just frustrating to me. It's just lack of discipline, lack of direction, and I mean, we deserve to be in the position we're in because of how we play on the pitch.
Like you said, Antoni, we were saying it since what, the third match week of the playoffs, where the third match day was the AEK game where we won 2-1. We flipped the scoreline from being 1-0 down, and we said, listen, that's now 3 games in a row in the playoffs at that point where we had gone down first, and we said from that point that okay, it's nice that we're flipping the script. We flipped it in the first game against Olympiacos, we didn't in the second game against PAOK, and we did in the third game against Ajax. So it's nice that we're, at least in 2 out of the 3, we're flipping the script, but this is not sustainable. Like, you can't keep going down early and expecting to flip the script. It's nice that it's happening at the current moment, but at some point that's going to stop happening, because no matter how good a team you are, you're just putting yourself in a much more difficult position to succeed. But yeah, you guys all bring up good points. Basically what I saw is that over the last 2 games, not just result wise, but performance wise, this didn't look like a team that was 5-6 days ago we were talking about the title. Now we're not. But this team over these past 2 games hasn't looked at all like a team that was in title contention less than a week ago, which is just insane. And I'm not focusing on the results. I'm focusing on the performance. Because listen, the facts are you got blanked for 180 minutes successively. Like, is that a title competing team? Of course not.
No.
I don't care if one game was against Ajax, the best team in the league. Doesn't matter. You're also up there right behind them. You're 1 point behind them. So to get blanked by them is just unacceptable. And then just to get blanked by ARIS at home just 4 or 5 days after is just that much more unacceptable in itself. So, you guys all brought up good points. One thing that really stood out to me about this ARIS game, piggybacking off of the Ajax game, is that for the second consecutive game, Foti's was completely non-existent. That was probably a big reason why we were unsuccessful against Ajax. But taking it a step further to ARIS, it was a big reason we were unsuccessful there too. That's concerning now that it's happened back-to-back games, and that teams might be starting to finding ways to neutralize him. Do you guys have anything to point out about that? Because that to me was like what stood out.
I have 2 things kind of piggybacking on that. Going back to the conversation of just how flat we look, the mentality. So I think 2 things going on with that, which we've kind of touched on about this topic, I think all season this year and part of last year. And the second piece to it is, so we've talked about lacking leadership. There's not a true leader out there on the field. And we hope that bringing in Bakasetas, Ethniki captain, he can bring some of those qualities over. We didn't see him. It was a little early. We're hyping it up because between him and Foti, finding that kind of synergy on the field, and then it just fell flat. But I think the other really key piece that we kind of missed a lot of this in the year before, and why Kurbelis, unfortunately, half people liked him, half didn't, whatever the outcome may be. He was our leader last year. We had that voice on the field, and this year we've kind of lacked that. I think since Terim came over, the one thing that we've taken for granted these last couple weeks, I think also is that voice. And that voice for a lot of these games, even going down since Terim took over, is Bernard. And he's been gone, and he's been kind of that light in the fire. Like, week in, week out, we see guys go up and down like Foti, Bakasetas, like we've seen him these weeks. But if there's one guy I can say that has been consistent this year, all year with that, and just the one guy we say that we can see, especially as of recent, that's been playing for the shirt and shows all that passion and gives it his all, is Bernard. He's been that voice. He's been that guy to help turn it around. He's been that creator. Him and Fortes have been on the same wavelength for a while. And so I think when we've missed him these last few weeks because of injury and stuff, it's really shown on the field. And it's sad that we've had that over-reliance, but that seems to be a trend. When we had no Foti, we had no over-reliance on him because he was our scorer. And now Bernard has been our creator, and he's not on the field. We're not creating squat on the field. And that's really concerning, because it's like, who are we going to rely on going forward? Because he's not coming back unless something crazy changes. But we've always lacked that creative guy on the field to link everything, but also that voice. And we missed both of those now with both Bernard and just nobody else. Foti's been the captain, but I mean, I think he's still kind of new stepping into that role. And I think just these last 2 weeks have just shown there's just no voice on the team. It's been sad seeing Perez being dropped because he's got that experience and that heart we've seen in those locker room huddles with him and Zach on stuff, but you don't bring that on the field, you're not going to see anything in the results, whether it's scoring, creativity. Like the team just didn't even look like they wanted to be out there, honestly.
Yeah. That, I mean, I echo what Alki is saying. I think to go back to Alex's original point, I think with Foti, a big part of it, and maybe the past couple games, he's playing injured. I think he alluded to something like that the other day with that viral video going around. But also, I mean, the fact that, you know, Bernard is missing, so we really don't have that creative player. And I think back to, I think it was Jovanovic's first season when we had Gacinovic. I mean, Gacinovic was kind of that guy that was
just
not
doing a little bit
necessarily-
of everything.
Yeah, he was
Won't
doing
show
yeah,
up on the
exactly.
stat sheet, but he's like that guy you have on that motor on the field.
Exactly. Like we saw the heat map that Sturge had sent for Ike. And I mean, like the guy, like he puts in work. So the team really doesn't have a guy like that. And again, we brought in Bakasetas to be kind of the leader. And again, you know, it's been some months, but still you do kind of want to see it. But it's just weird. And I think that's the big part of it, is that we don't have like a vocal leader, like a set out and out leader. It was supposed to be, Terim was using Zeka at first, then he was then Ruben came in, and he was vocal and looking good again, and then suddenly that just stopped, and it's just weird.
But if you guys notice the pattern of all the guys that did favor us, or even like Gacinovic, Gurbeli, they're the voice, but they're also mobile guys. Perez, he's past it. Like he can't move around the field. Bakasetas, we've seen from Ethniki, he's not. If you look at his heat map, it's probably going to be very stagnant. All these other guys kind of cover everywhere to be able to. We have that in Terim, I'd say. He's kind of all over the field, but he's not that leader, has that voice for the team either. So it's like we got one guy doing one thing, one guy doing the other, whereas in the past we've had one guy take on both and mesh the whole team together.
I was gonna say that the disappointing thing about the creativity is, yes, Bernard is injured right now, and it's a shame. You know, he's been amazing, but we have Terim, we have Bakasetas. That should be enough creativity. You know, Bakasetas has been a creator all his career. Terim he sits a bit deeper, but he creates a lot. So it's just mind-boggling that we're not creating the chances, and that really annoys me. But the other thing for me is, just take it to defense. We look so nervy on the ball. Like we stutter on the ball in defense, and look at the way we were playing out the back in the opening 10 minutes against Ike. That was disgraceful. They had a first chance in the 3rd minute, a very big chance. I don't exactly remember how it happened, but that was our warning shot. We do exactly the same thing. Try to play out the back. Terim played a stupid ball in the middle that Arau couldn't cover, and then they score from it. And this also, unfortunately, I hate to link it back, but Magnuson, this guy was incredible for us in defense, and I feel like his injury has killed us. As good as Jedva has been since January, we've changed the back line around a lot. I know we've kind of stuck to Jedva and Akaidin lately, but we all know Akaidin was having a little bit of a good run of form, but it wasn't sustainable. This guy was not a very good player when we got him. The one who's more disappointing is Ugo, but that's not my point right now. My point is that we had an out-and-out centre-back who I feel like was a leader and a voice in the defence. And now we can see goals from playing out the back, like with Lamia, with Slivka's goal as well, with Kotsiras's error. That is not good enough. And look, that's 2 chances that 2 goals, you've conceded in the opening 10 or 15 minutes to go down 1-0 from playing out the back. That's disappointing to me.
This might be slightly an unpopular opinion, but just because we were talking about the leadership qualities and, you know, who we're looking at to, you know, come through with that, I don't think Bakasetas is the leader that kind of we expected him to be, or need him to be, or needed him to be. I don't know whatever tense you want to use at this point. I know he's the Ethniki captain. I I don't know the ins and outs. To me, that kind of might be a little bit of a seniority thing. Like, this is a team that has the Ethniki I'm talking about has gone through a lot in the past few years, losing to the Faroe Islands and shit like that, not making major tournaments. The squad has been rotated. The old guard like Manolas and Papasatopoulos have been kicked out. Anyway, my point is that I don't know how much I weigh him being the Ethniki captain as a good translation to him being a club captain. And what I mean by that is I see a lot. His on pitch body language is not what I would be looking for from a leader. I respect him. I think he's a good player. I think he's one of the best cams in Greece, probably right behind Fortounis. But in terms of that leadership, like his body language is always like very almost crybaby like he does something, he skies like a free kick and he's like, his facial expressions are just not what you'd expect from a leader. I don't see him commanding players and commanding in like a positive way on the pitch like you would expect from a leader. So I don't know, that's my 2 cents on Baca. I don't think currently he's the leader we need, and honestly, at this point, I don't even think he is in a captain role next season with us. I think he can be like unofficially, but as in terms of who's going to be our captain next year, assuming that let's just say Foti is not with us, I don't know if I'm looking for Baca to be that. But that's my 2 cents there. In terms of the Foti thing that I brought up, one thing I wanted to say is that a lot of emphasis is going to be put on Foti because he has been shut out these last few games, and I don't mean that negatively. Like players go through runs and streaks, and I'm not pointing fingers at Foti. I'm not saying he's the reason that we're out of this title race. He's in fact the reason that we were in it for so long, probably. But with him getting isolated, we saw, especially in the Ajax game, he got double teamed, triple teamed at times. Chris, you pointed that out. That was a potential thing that was going to happen pre-game when we were on the space.
Yeah.
That happened against ARIS too. He was, heavily double teamed at times. That's not rocket science. Teams are going to start doing that, especially when you have this, go-to target man who's like your main guy. But when teams are starting to double and triple team your center forward, that inevitably creates more space for your wingers. Logically,
You would think at least.
everybody, yeah, exactly. You'd think everybody lines up against everybody. It's 10v10 on the pitch. Of course, not everyone is marked at all times just because of how you shape up on the field. But just for argument's sake, it is evenly matched. So if you're putting more players, more defenders on one player, that should be making more space for your other attacking players, i.e., your wingers and your cams. That they should be able to exploit to use to their advantage. So I don't want to put all the emphasis on Foti because there's only so much he can do if he's getting double teamed or triple teamed. Yes, he should do everything in his power to get free still, but you got to realize where spaces are being made because of that. It's a gamble from the defense to put so many players on one player because of what it means for our other attacking players. But we just, especially in that eye game, we weren't able to exploit those gaps from the double triple team at all. So yeah, that's just me a little bit not giving a concession to Foti in a way.
It's kind of similar, obviously very different sports, but it's similar in like any sports. Basketball, for example, like we brought up Ataman in the beginning, like how they smother Slukas or none, and we turn it over, and it's like obviously it's a faster paced game, but in a similar sense of like if you're seeing your, like you said, Alex, your star forward double triple team, that leaves other guys open. We have capable scorers. Like we know Bakasetas can score. We've seen Limnos, obviously he has been kind of up and down. We know what he's capable of. We've seen Palacios do it. Like Terim, we know he can. Sporar, like he's a scorer. Like we've got guys that are capable, but if you see that happening and you're not feeding it to those open spaces with those open guys, it just kind of, it makes you scratch your head because it's like, does Terim not see this? Are we not adjusting tactics to like shift focus? Like, do we not have a backup plan? I guess my point, like, are we going to try to just force feed Foti until he gets a call or something, or just not keep possession, which is also very bizarre because coming in, Terim is a possession heavy based coach, and we can't even seem to keep the ball 3 weeks in a row or 2 weeks, whatever it is, since the Lamia game. Like, there's a lot of different areas where it's getting concerning at this point, especially we're right at the end of the season.
And I was going to say as well, in the second half versus Ike, the lack of adjustments. I know he made changes, but going back to what you guys were saying about Foti being double, triple team, whatever you want to call it, it's not like we actually changed that. We brought on Sporar, but nothing actually changed. He was still being double, triple team. No one was going to support him. It's almost becoming that we're just relying on him too much. And without Bernard, who was in top form, they're just going to go to him because they saw it worked in the first half. They saw it worked in the first 10 minutes in the second half, for example. And they're like, okay, cool. This is just what we're going to do. They're not going to be able to get past that. But with Bernard, you would need someone always constantly marking him, possibly a second man, always making sure he was there, which created so much room for Foti. And that's why we were scoring so many goals with it as well. Versus Olympiacos, we scored a couple versus even Ike and Lamia in the first game. So it's just so disappointing to see the lack of adjustments made at half time. And it's just goes back to, do you really want it? You know, do you really want to win the Protaslima? It's been how many years, honestly? I actually can't remember.
14.
14. There you go. 15.
next
Wow.
year.
Unbelievable. In my lifetime, I've never seen us actually win anything properly, apart from that, a couple Kipelos. I mean, like, that's ridiculous, you know? It's been so long, and it just feels like right now, under Jova, we kind of built up this team to be properly contending for the Protaslima for 2 years. And I think we really banked on winning it back to back, which we really could have. And now we're in a hole because now this team is aging. We're having expiring deals like Bernard and stuff. Magnuson's injury, the injury screwed him as well. So now it's like, what do? Do you rebuild again? How long is that going to take? How long are you going to contend again?
So that begs the question, is contending, obviously we've seen it, but was the team properly built up, honestly? Because year after year, we've seen us kind of get to that point and then slowly fizzle out towards the end of the season. Was it properly built, though, guys, do you think? Or is it that we were just overachieving?
I mean, I'll jump in right there. I've been saying since we sacked Jova, I mean, even before that, I mean, my whole thing with Jovanovic at the time was like, with what we have, we're overachieving. I mean, you know, in my opinion, that -1 point off of first was flattering for us, in my opinion, with the way that we were playing. Yeah, and I mean, it's back even last year. I mean, we talked about it in the winter window, in the summer as well. Fingers are pointed at Jova. Even I thought about it as well, that our signings took forever. I mean, it was clear what we needed. We needed last year in the winter window, we needed a winger, and we got one, but we waited until our 10-point gap was gone. In the summertime, we needed to make some reinforcements as well, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and we had started the European campaign. If I remember, we had like 1 or 2 signings. I could be remembering that wrong, but I remember us still being in those qualification rounds and still just dragging our toes in the sand to make signings. And so, no, to Alki's point, I don't think we weren't actually properly built to be a competitive, or I'm sorry, to be a actual championship contending team, because our depth killed us. If you guys remember, I mean, we were out of center backs. We've been playing with Mladenovic for like half the season. I mean, there was holes in the roster. Where maybe other teams.
Center back. And
Arao was a makeshift center back. And I mean, look at PAO. I mean, PAO has so much depth. They basically have 2 starting 11s. Like, if you just look at their bench and you look at their starting players, Ike a little bit. I mean, their defense is a little bit suspect, but
Ike is aging just like us, but they have a coach that's capable of exploring those holes.
Right. Yes. And with us, I mean, we're not. I don't think we're fully built for that. We were overachieving, and now the gas has run out again at the same time. And look at where we're at.
I mean, just looking at creative stats, Bernard being out since he's our top assist leader, our next top assist leader is Foti, who's getting shut out. So now you're taking down your 2 best players. The next 3 names on that list, and you let me know, guys, how many games these guys have played since Terim has taken over. So Palacios is next, Mancini, and then Juancar. And then Kotsiras is number 5 on that list. Our top 5 assist leaders, I'm pulling these off of FotMob and Transfer Market, are Bernard Foti, Palacios, Mancini, and Juankar. Mancini and Juankar, we barely see them play. Foti and Bernard are basically taken out of the game. So there's our top 4 assist leaders right there that are not even in the game or just being shut down. I mean, Juankar being our 4th top, like, come on.
I mean, I mean that's concerning, but also in modern day football, like the wing backs are so integral to the attack with crossing. You know, like Trent Alexander-Arnold is probably like the
right, but I guess
one.
Juancar's been injured. He hasn't even been playing, and he's still our 3rd or 4th top assist
I think
leader.
you're right. Your point is solid. You know, one thing that kind of, you know, trying to figure out in my head is just the output from our wingers has been very, very poor, which I think is highlighted by the fact that, you know, look at who are the wingers who are you know, high up in assists, because that is a position where you'd figure you would have kind of high assist numbers. The only winger that's really showed up this year has been Bernard consistently. Of course, Palacios too. I'm not taking anything away from Palacios, but honestly, in the playoffs, his output has fallen significantly.
0 goals, 0 assists from Palacios in the playoffs.
Yeah, so he was definitely good, you know, January to March, and also, you know, back to the end of 2023. I'm not taking anything away from him, but when we needed him the most, he went non-existent, and we were heavily relying on Bernard, like you just pointed out. So again, like, Foti can get shut down. That's fine. That shouldn't be the end of the world, is what
exactly, and it is,
kind of
unfortunately.
It is, because if you have no output from your other wingers, or you have only one winger who's going to produce output, then he goes down like we've seen, and then Palacios non-existent on Wednesday, Verbic today or yesterday, sorry, not a factor. Mancini, Limnos, all these guys, they were just not factors at all. So there's only so much, like, someone else has got to pick up the, you know, the workload if Foots is getting shut down. It's just not, shouldn't be a death sentence, but unfortunately, because of, you know, what we're talking about, it has been. Is there anything else we need to talk about the ARIS game? You know, unfortunately, the circumstances now are, I'm not even sure if we're mathematically out of it now.
I think
you
if
know,
Ike
again,
actually win one, once they win their next game, I think mathematically they basically have it, because there's only 2 games left for everyone. They would have to drop points, but even that, they'd have to win at least one. If they drop or draw,
no, they don't have a game in hand.
no.
Wait, no,
Oh,
it's, hang on, I've got it. It's basically, if AEK win their final 2 league games, they win the league no matter what. If Oli win their final 3 games, they also win the league no matter what. If PAOK win their final 3 games and AEK fail to beat Olympiacos, PAOK wins the league. We basically need a miracle. I mean, we have to literally have AEK to George.
So
we're
everybody else has win conditions except for us. So that's
it
all
literally
you, that's
says,
all you
it
need to
literally
know.
says on the post.
We're
It literally
done.
says on the post, Panathinaikos need a miracle.
Ora. Thavma. Okay,
We're
great.
done.
That's all you need to know. Anyway,
So keep a lot is right. Keep a lot or nothing.
So
Behind
Yeah.
closed doors, in the pants, whatever it's called, the stadium,
I
the
mean,
Volo Stadium.
that might play better into our benefit if we're honest, since our home record is
and
so
by the way,
trash.
And by the way, I was telling Chris this before we got on. You see me wearing this shirt today. I wore this shirt because, as it turns out, last season this shirt and this season they've played the same fucking way. We bottled it, so this is in honor of
The meaning behind it
of a back-to-back bottle.
Doesn't even matter
anyway,
anymore.
That's the ARIS game. Let's turn now to some news. Let me just start with the Foti's news a little bit, because we were talking about him extensively. There was this video that came up online. If you were on Twitter at all yesterday, you were bombarded by it a million times. There was a video post match of Foti just going in, trying to leave. But there was a Christopanagis dropping.
Oh, he looked like a typical fan, which
yeah.
It's sad from the team, but at the same time, like, you kind of love to see it, because like you could just see there's like just so much, like, you know, he's taking it in just as much as us as fans. Like, at the end of the day, all these players are fans first, right?
Yeah, I showed it to my fiance, who she follows the team, but she doesn't speak Greek. So I showed her the video and explained to her what was going on. But at first, she didn't realize that that was Foti. So that's how you know,
Uh,
from, if you don't have the context,
Yeah.
that's how sad the situation is. Where, like you said, Alki, he just looked like a fan. But yeah, the video was of Foti trying to leave, and he was just cursing, and he was responding to a fan that was basically obviously criticizing him and pointing fingers. Um, Foti's not the problem. Like I said
The
earlier on,
audacity. The
like I said
audacity.
earlier
the guy
on, like
carried us through
he
Europe. Like, come on.
he
I
is
know.
he's the reason that we are even 1 point behind with 3 games left. He's not the reason now that we're out. That's why I didn't want to. What me pointing out that he's been isolated is not. It's not a critique of
It
Foti.
happens. I mean,
It
that
happens.
happens in every
Team
sport. You're
team
the best player.
team
Teams are going to
teams
double
will
up.
exactly. Teams will smarten up, and you just, as a team, have to be better and find solutions around it. But that has no place in the fandom. There's no reason to be pointing fingers at Foti, and especially that aggressively, like just
Yeah, and that context of the
put,
wording used, obviously
And what
you're a
they said.
fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
put put
no
put put your energy somewhere else. Not
seriously.
not
Super
there.
vulgar to one of our players as well, and to our franchise player who we've all been talking about. In my opinion, I don't honestly don't care what anyone says. He's worth 40 million. I honestly don't care what anyone says. I honestly believe that. I think his link up play is absolutely incredible. It's the best I've seen in world football for a striker right now. People can shit on me. I honestly don't care. I honestly believe that he is. Unfortunately, yeah, his in the box work isn't amazing still yet, but it's going to get there, I feel. And the audacity to actually go at him like that, and like, for people that speak Greek and have seen the video to know what that idiot said, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, that's something that you don't say to one of your players. And just going back to the point, I think Alki, you made about him carrying us in Europe. When they show who's top scorer in the Europa League in the top five, there's still someone on 5 goals. That's that's how many goals Foti scored. He scored 5 goals in 6 games in Europe.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
Just lack of respect, not even just for him, the player, but if you're going to say anything, like that's just lack of respect for the club that you so quote unquote support. Like you would never say that ever.
This
You
is
shouldn't.
the problem, and I think me and Alex have talked about this. This is the frustration about like this whole scenario that we're in, because the last couple years the club was finally united, and now we're starting to see things unravel. We're seeing fans fighting with fans. We're seeing fans cussing out our own players, our best player, Foti, and it's just unacceptable behavior. I'm sorry. Look, if you're not happy with the performance on the pitch, okay, but you don't make personal attacks. You don't make vulgar attacks like that, especially against somebody that plays for your team, that has been he's been busting his tail. And I mean, I think he alluded to, he was playing with injections. I mean, he
That's
didn't
what they
have to do
said.
that. He could have just sat out, but he played injured 2 big games. He knew how important it was. So it's just upsetting. It's unsettling, because again, we spent the last couple of years finally bringing this fan base together, and we've just seen in a 6 month, 7 month spell, however long it's been since Christmas, all of a sudden everything's just unraveling, and it's just really frustrating to see, because now we're going back to square one of what we've been the last decade plus.
But that's also what happens when you sack a coach for no. I mean, I know we got kicked out of Europe, but he built this shit up, and I think to not let him finish the season, and now when you take into account that Terim, I mean, it's not Terim's fault. Don't get me wrong. Okay, partly it is, but it's not all his fault. And now that you take into the consideration that we didn't win the Protaslima, it just keeps going back to that. How many posts have we seen on X saying like, if Radi stole Ivan and like SC, and like, it's just ridiculous, because, and the reason why they do that is because they want to compare, and because they want to blame the ownership. And yes, no one likes Alafouzos. We all think it's time to go for him, and he's not done a very good job. Especially in recent this year and stuff. But that's always just going to create the animosity between the fans, and you want to keep the fans together. So for me, it just, that in that sense, it wasn't the right call.
That's right, and me and Antoni have been saying this for. Am I muted? No. me and Adoni have been saying this for a while, is that, listen, regardless if you're with Terim or with Jova or with both or with neither, whatever, when you sacked Jova at the point that you did, you set not you set a precedent, you set the tone, and you indirectly stated that I don't believe this guy can win the league. Because, by the way, we were 2 points off the top at that point. We were sitting in second, only 2 points off the top halfway through the season. So you're making the point that I don't think this guy is going to win the league, but I think this guy's going to win the league. So and that's just going to divide the fan base, like you said. And that's exactly what happened. And that is maybe the saddest part out of all of this, because we've just taken a huge step back from where we were, regardless of anything happening on the pitch. It's just you don't want to see this kind of behavior and this kind of turning on your own team and own players kind of thing. And even Terim, like Terim's copying it now too. I mean,
as he should,
but also like what the fuck, man? Like yeah, sure, he had to take the job at the end of the day, but
he took the job knowing what the expectation was. And some people rise, some people they fall. I mean, Jovanovic had plenty of his flaws. We can debate all day, would we be in the same position? We've seen Jova drop equally sad games. You saw him drop a how big of a lead, Europe. The stories continue on both sides. End of the day, though, Alafozos has set that, like you said, Alex, I think you can call it a precedent, or the expectation that, like, I'm making a change, even though we're 2 points out of first, which we recorded, and we're just like, what kind of conversation we're having here? There's no way Jovanovic leaves. The rumors were there. We're like, he's 2 points. Like, what are we doing here? And it happened. But doing that, like you said, like you're setting that expectation that this is what I expect out of the club. It's not, hey, we've been shit for 10 years. I'm just trying to pull us out of the hole. We've done that. We won the cup, but now you're firing the guy that pulled you out of the hole to try to get to the next level. Now you're falling flat on your face. You got to take accountability for that as well.
I had said this back when it happened. This was like in December time, it was December. It was, in a way, okay, you can kind of see what he was trying to do on Lafuzzo's, right? Trying to set that precedent and whatnot. But it was at the worst possible moment. I think Yango and I were talking about it as well. You sack a coach who's built the team for the last 2-3 years in the middle of December, and he was 1 point off from what I remember. He was actually 1 point off at first. You sack him there, going into the winter window with the expectation that this new guy is just going to come in, take over, and he's going to win us the league. I mean, sure, it's happened before, but given our history, given how we bottled it last year, okay, I'm not saying that Jovanovic was going to win it this year. Given all the, the history we've had with the other coaches, with our transfer periods, with all of these things, the cups are stacked against you at this point. So it's like you're sacking Jovanovic to punt and try to take the risk, but history's not on our side with when we've made decisions like these, where we've sacked coaches in the middle of the season. And look, again, hindsight is 2020, but it's like, if you had told me back in December to sack Jova, I would have said no, and I'd still say no, because the fact is, look, we're not going to win the title. I don't think we're winning the title with Jovanovic either. But if I'm not going to win the title, let us finish off with Jovanovic. Let's stay united, and then let's rebuild in the summer.
At the end of the day, teams that sack their coaches have nothing to lose, but they have something to gain. We had something to lose.
Right.
The fucking title is what we had to lose.
Well, this is the Greek league too, so I mean, we've seen it happen, but the difference is we've seen it happen with teams like, let's bring up Oli, for example. They've been able to still do it because they've always just had a better team.
Yeah, but what positions are they sacking their coaches?
Typically, well, we've seen them sack them, they've had a carousel, but I guess my point is to kind of prove your point, Alex, is typically in sports, when you're getting rid of a coach, you're not under good circumstances. Like, you need to rebuild and stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't do it. And we all agree, like, there could be the Jova side, the Terim side. End of the day, I think, regardless of what side you're on, we can all come to the agreement that like it should have been done way before when he fell out of Europe, or should have just let him
Sure.
finish out the season. The timing
Sure.
of it all was the worst part of it all. It's the good, the
Sure.
bad, and ugly. We saw him bring up the good. You sack him. Now you're going to see the bad. And now things are not going the way you want. This is the ugly. And it's going to get ugly come summer. Signings aside, I don't know how fans are going to feel going into summer. Let's say Terim does stay around, because that's the next topic I think, Alex, we have is sticking with Terim and finding a summer window, which, as you said, Antoni, too, history repeats itself. It always does, whether it's a coach or anything. Signings, they take forever. Signings aside, you got to find a way to figure it out and get this boat back on the road, because it's not looking good right now, no matter what direction we go in.
Let me also just add that we were playing some good ball in this season with Jovanovic. He had done that amazing run to firstly get us back into Europe. Yeah, we flopped in Europe. You know, we won our first game and we didn't win again. But firstly, that's not guaranteed. That wouldn't have happened with Terim. That was a new squad in the group stage. But they had done so well in the qualification phase that it makes me think that this team has potential in Europe, firstly. The second thing is, I'm just looking at some of the results now. We did not have these results in the season before that with Jovanovic. You know, 5-0 against Panathinaikos, 5-0 against Atromitos, 5-0 against Panserikos, derby win against Olympiakos, 4-0 win against Ofi. I feel like he was really starting to cook, and it's just a real shame. But yeah, partly I'm echoing what you guys were saying, but also just adding that I think we were starting to play our best ball, and I feel like next season, maybe if we would be in Europe, which we most likely would be, he would have improved, learned from his mistakes, and that really showed potential in the qualification phase. Even that second game versus Braga, I remember I was there in the stadium, and we played some really good ball that game. We got a bit unlucky, but yeah, that's football.
Well, Villarreal, that 1-0, I know is the only Europa League game we won, but that one 2-0, sorry, a 2-0 win against Villarreal was probably the best game we played all season, honestly. We were prolific in attack. We neutralized Villarreal, one of a Spanish giant and the most successful Europa League team in history, to 4 shots over 90 minutes. Like, I don't need to repeat about that because we've talked about it.
It was pure dominance. It's the only game we've dominated from minute 1 to minute 90.
Yeah, and I mean, also don't even forget. I mean, we won on penalties. We beat Marseille too. I mean, we took them to the wire, and I mean, we had some good moments under Jovanovic. And you know, I'm not here to say that maybe he would have been here for next season as well. But at the very least, he deserved to finish the season out. I mean, that was always
finish what he started.
Nothing against Terim. It was just the decision was from back then. It was just a stupid decision because, like Alex said earlier, we had something to lose. We just came off a big win against, I think it was Atromitos, the game before he got sacked.
We lost to Atromitos.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost to Atromitos.
Yeah. Oh,
we did.
Let me. That's a big one. Yeah, let me not mix that up. Yeah. So never mind. We did just lose to Atromitos.
No.
No, we had Volos after.
Volos 3-0.
We beat Volos. That's what it was.
We lost 3-2 to Atromitos, and then we beat Volos 3-0.
Yes,
and then he got sacked.
And then he got fired. Which the Volos again is Volos, but the performance was a good performance in that game, and it was just really, really dumb, you guys. And Alex, I think Alki had alluded to it about like Terim for next summer and all that. I don't know if we.
Well, yeah. Let me address the elephant in the room, because we've all kind of alluded to it. Because this is what actually an hour before we started recording, this rumor dropped. Is that Terim is going to be sacked effective immediately. He will not even see out the end of the season, and Alafoudis is looking for a manager to see out the end of the season.
Games.
3 games, two league, and one very.
Take it with a grain of
match.
salt. It was like 2 different pages on Instagram. Nothing's been verified yet, but I mean, we have alluded to it all season. There were reports when we first hired Terim. I think you guys remember.
That was from Turkish
2-year
people
deal
as well.
2-year deal. Oh, he's only doing this season. He's not going to be around. He was second choice. He's going to be gone summer. Like, the writing was somewhat on the wall. We still don't know if this is true, but it's coming out now. And it could just be white smoke, but like Antoni likes to say, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's something going on.
I gotta say this. I gotta say this. First of all, what a fucking failure to sack Jova, bring in Terim to win the title, not win the title, and sack him before the
He can win the
season
cup.
ends, before he can win the cup. Just think about that for a second. Just think about that for a second.
We've become like a typical like lower mid-table Greek team if we sack him, honestly.
let me say this. Alafuzos might not pull out the wallet for signings, but he'll pull out the wallet to sack 2 managers within 6 months when potentially neither of them deserve to be sacked. Let me just
That's
put
where
that
all
out
the
there
Europe
also.
money went, is their contracts.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Ridiculous.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's yeah, to Alex's point, I mean, that sums it all up, really, doesn't it? The last 15 years, 12 years, however long it's been. I mean, when I first like seriously started watching Panathinaikos and like trying to understand everything, we went through 4 coaches in 1 season. I remember that. It was a 2012-13 season, right? I mean, every single year we basically sacked a coach, had like probably two, 3 coaches each year. And again, like we sacked Jova, the guy that brought so much positive to the team, right? United everything we believed we could win, overachieve, blah, blah, blah. To bring in Terim to be the guy to take us over the top. And now that that's clearly failed, you know, 3 games and a cup with Europe on the line, fire him. We're gonna bring Yanni from the Choreo to just finish off the last 3 games and potentially miss out Europe. Like it just shows the club, and I've been saying this when I used to write a lot for Elas Footy. You can go back and see. It's just the club doesn't have a culture. It doesn't have a winning culture. It doesn't have a set way of operating in a proper manner, right? I remember seeing listening to an interview with Juan Ramon Rocha, the famous Argentine Panathinaikos player from the 80s. He's been the coach of the youth academies. And he's saying, like, you know, Alafuzos, he has good intentions for Panathinaikos, but he doesn't surround himself by the right people. And I mean, for all we know with these decisions, I mean, it probably is true, right? He's got to invest. If you're going to be sacking and paying all this money to these coaches, I would invest in solid advisors, some type of actual people with football acumen.
That's what it is. Surround yourself with football people, man. He's treating this like a business where you could just get rid of a manager, get someone else to just come do the job, and that's not what it is. This isn't just a job.
Exactly. Like
there's plenty of owners around the world, whether it's football, soccer, basketball, whatever.
Right.
There's plenty of owners who that are clueless. Exactly. Right. So he's not the first one and he's not the last one, but he's just not handling it the right way.
They do it a certain way. Look, Alafuzos is a billionaire, so the guy's a genius. He's smart. He knows what he's doing in his businesses. When it comes to running the clubs, like you guys are mentioning, I mean, for example, like Alki, right, with the Lakers. The Lakers, for example, are run like a joke, in my opinion. I mean, they've got to fix it. In my opinion, Panathinaikos football clubs kind of run like the Lakers. We're playing off our legacy, right? And we're not really run properly, right? People are constantly kind of poking fun at us. So we've got to find some person that actually has some footballing acumen, that knows how to run the team and to make these right decisions. Alafuzos can do all the other business stuff and all that because he's good at that stuff. But I would definitely like hire some people that actually know some of these things. Like we've mentioned, we know when we've needed players. We've seen when we need, you know, there's holes in the roster that need to be filled. Like it's just basic things that we've really effed up on like the last 2 seasons that have cost us, and we're just seeing it again and again and again. To me, it's the lack of the culture at the team. There's no like direction in my opinion.
And my thing is, like, you can get it wrong all day long with signings because that happens in football. It happens in every sport, free agent signings, whatever you want to call it, transfers. But you need to surround yourself with people in the football know, and you need to invest in the club itself. And when I say that, I mean facilities, our youth academy, like backs against the wall. We have all these injuries. We've seen other teams within the league, probably the best. We've seen Olympiacos as of recently. Their U team just won the UEFA Cup, but our academy is non-existent. So when you're stuck with injuries or you can't sign the right players, you need to look to your youth facilities or to the offensive coaches to tacticians, defensive minded guys. Like, we don't have any of that. And it's evident because just, hey, sack this guy, bring a new guy in, I got money. You're just you're spending carelessly, not actually spending wisely into the team and wanting to actually improve it.
You know what, Alki? And that might be one of the saddest things is that, like, if we're going to finish fourth, which is a real possibility now, by the way, because if Olympiacos win their game in hand or get any points from their game in hand, we're in fourth. We're in third right now, but again, they're behind us with the game in hand. But again, the point I wanted to make is that if we're going to finish fourth any season, doesn't have to be this season. I'd say this any season, at least like have youth development. For example, PAOK was finishing fourth for so many years in a row. Yeah, they weren't winning the league, and that fucking sucks for them, but they were developing youth. They've become, over the past 10 years, the premier youth development in Greece. So at least you have that to hold on to, and that's a positive to take out of this whole situation. We have no positives to take out of this whole situation, and to my point, we haven't produced the youth. It's not like, oh, I'm behind the other three, but look at me, I'm producing these young guys. No, it's not like that at all. So that's,
well, it's not even youth, but it's like, if you're not going to invest in youth, we don't invest in youth, but then we'd also don't throw money reckless. Like, I can spend and they bring in the foreigners, or Olympiacos, they run through payroll like crazy. Like, so they're not investing in youth, but they're investing in these foreign guys to at least compete for a title. We're kind of in the middle, not doing either.
Kind of also what Sturge has brought up about us, like, not getting any younger. I mean, look at the average age in the squad. I think it's the third oldest in the Greek league or something. That should not be the case for one of the biggest teams. And if you look at one of our youth academy players, that I just remember hearing his name, Bilal Mazar, has he actually become anything? No, he hasn't. You look at PAOK and who they have, for example, they've built Konstantelias, Kouliarakis, Tsimas is coming now. Olympiacos just won the youth league thingy. And then, just echoing what you guys are saying, look at us. It's just a real shame. And it's just like, you've got to start somewhere, I'm almost happy to say, all right, next season, rebuilding season, get some young talent in, try it out. I think we can all say next season we're not going to win the Protathlyma, we're not going to be ready for it. So perhaps try something new, bring in maybe even a younger manager or something, or some younger players to try and change something up.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and say we're not going to win the Protathlyma, because we just don't know what's going to happen. But before we jump ahead to what's going to happen next season, after the AEK game, I, out of curiosity, looked at Dinamo Zagreb's squad this season. And the reason I'm bringing them up is because they're kind of the gold standard in terms of producing young talent in European football. They consistently, for a small team, are just pounding out these guys. And I looked at their squad in their last game, and they had something like, it was either 6 or 7 out of 11 players in their starting 11, 25 or younger, which is just, imagine any team in Greece doing that, let alone us. Of course, PAOK, I think, does it better than anyone in Greece, but
we're second in average age, by the way, the oldest, 29.3.
How many 25 and younger players do we have on a given day in the starting 11? 2? Foti and Vayanidis, maybe? Terim, 3.
And he's a foreigner, so.
Yeah, and guys, the thing is too, and I know you guys point to that. That's more so like in a perfect world, because as we saw like a few years ago, we went down that youth route when we had Donis, and we had Hadziovanis, we had Bouzoukis, we had these young guys. And the reality is that, like, to Alex's point, like, there's lack of investment in the youth, and we're not producing good quality young Greek players, if I'm being honest. Like, yeah, Foti, but realistically, he came from Levadiakos Academy, I think it was, and Alexandropoulos, and he's kind of, he's at Oli and he's not really starting all the time, but it's just,
that's 2 players in the last how many years? Even if we claim Foti, because he has emerged as a star player under our. He wasn't like a world beater, but that's 2 guys out of how many years?
So that's the thing. In a perfect world, if we invested in our youth, like Savidis, PAOK, like they heavily invest into their youth academies. We've seen things like that. We tried the young coach route, right? We hired Poyatos, lasted 3 games, got fired. Like it all goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's just we need footballing minds to make these types of decisions that we're saying, because it all starts from like how you're going to organize things, right? Because I can open up a business, but if I'm hiring people that really don't know what they're doing and I'm just hiring whoever,
You're just throwing money left and right, and you're going to be out
I'm
of
throwing
business.
money left and right, and I'm not getting the best quality per the dollar that I've got right now, and that seems to be our issue, you know. And to Alafuso's credit, again, like in the winter, like he brought in Bacacetas, like he brought in these good players and all that stuff. But it's like we make one good decision and then we make a couple of really, really wrong decisions that end up costing us. And it's like you've got to tear things down and you've got to build things up the right way. And again, in Greek football, we see it's a revolving door constantly. We see it with all the other clubs. Really, PAOK seems to me to be the most kind of consistently run. And funnily enough, guess what? They're owned by a foreign guy, and technically, right? This is a Russian Greek, but he comes from a different culture technically, right? And he kind of runs things a little bit differently. Whereas we see how the other clubs are kind of run. Even Ike for years, I mean, Melesanidis, if you guys remember, was being criticized constantly. Well, when they win and they wipe the dead and they did things slowly. But there was like a methodical approach eventually. With us, it's kind of like we just throw something, it doesn't work, we blow it up, we do the French project, we do the Spanish project. We bring in the Serbian Jovanovic. Get rid of him. Let's bring in Terim, the proven winner in his career. Doesn't work, fire him. So it's kind of like we're just throwing stuff and praying that it's going to stick when there's no clear direction for us.
There's no identity.
Reactionary.
Yeah, very reactionary. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well.
So let me circle back to the Terim rumor now. I'm gonna speak for all of us, and if anyone disagrees, just interrupt me. I think we all agree that he should see out the season. He should not be sacked with 3 games left in the season. I think we all agree on that, and especially with a cup final going on. But where we might disagree is, looking forward after these 3 games and into next season. So I'm just gonna go to each one of you. You're gonna say yes or no if you want him here next year, based on where we sit today, not where we might be, after the cup final if he wins it. So, Chris, yes or no, based on today, do you want Terim here next year?
I think I'd have to go with no, to be honest. I think if you have the whole summer to find a coach, I'm really hoping that they'd find the right one. And my main reason, I'm just going to keep it short and brief, to be honest, he's quite old as well. I just don't see it being long term, and I want something long term, even if it is very hopeful. But yeah.
Antoni?
2 weeks ago, I said I wanted him, but today, no.
Alki?
I'll play devil's advocate and say yes. My only reasoning is for, just like any other coach, give him a summer. Terim came into a wrecking ship. He's tried to steer it, not the best of results, but I'd see, give him, just like we gave Jovanovic, give him a summer, let him prepare. Winter comes. If it's still a shitstorm, then obviously start the rebuild.
Yeah. I'm a little conflicted, but I'm gonna have to say yes, like Alki. 2 weeks ago, like Antoni said, I was pretty hard set on it. Now I'm a little more ambivalent, but I still want to say yes because, just echoing Alki, like, give him a summer. He had half a season. He did some good things. He did some bad things. Some things were out of his control also. The goods that he's done, he has player sway. Like he's brought in some good players, which I think can help us with him having a full off season and then starting fresh from a new beginning. The bad is, we've talked about the bad already plenty in this podcast. But yeah, I don't know what you're gonna, like, who are you, like, I mean, I think the only situation where I'm like, I would prefer this guy over Terim is maybe Vokolos. Like, out of the realistic options, of course, excluding like the Peps and the Klopps of the world, club available, by the way. Excluding those guys, out of the realistic options, I think only like Vokolos would entice me, or maybe Pablo Garcia. But without speculating, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna bring in someone else, and we've said it over this past week. Like, honestly, you give any manager, any realistic manager this team, he probably finishes with the same result. He probably overachieves based on this squad because the squad has the holes and the players have consistency issues and
I mean,
this and
he's made
that.
it to the cup final. I mean, what are you guys when you heard Terim coming? What were you guys' expectations? We were 1 point off of
Oh,
first,
the
but
title
League
was the
title.
expectation because they made that expectation. They set that
Yeah.
right.
expectation.
I guess, but before bringing, but did you guys truly believe that?
No, I never did.
No.
I'm not gonna lie. My
That's my
expectation
thing. Is did you
was
truly believe it
no.
versus what Alafosos is setting now as the goal? What did you guys truly believe bringing in just a new coach? Like, did you even think we would be in a title race up until
Yes,
this past
yes,
weekend?
yes, because that I mean, when you were 2 points off and you sack a coach, that has to at least be the expectation to be in a title race, especially in the playoffs. But if I'm hand on heart, if someone told me when we sacked him, do you think you're going to win the league? I would have said no, because partly because of my, you know, experience last season, but also that I just, again, as you were saying, I felt like Jovanovic was getting the best out of a bunch that was the best out of a bad bunch is the term. They're not necessarily a bad bunch, but
No, but he
as you said,
got a
overperforming.
lot out of a little, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm on record saying it too. I mean, the expectation, I remember saying it too, it was harsh. The expectation was title or bust. In reality, though, I knew it was there was just too big of a mountain to climb. And Terim he's had his positives, but he's had his fair share of massive screw ups, in my opinion, too, where I'm just kind of like the ARIS game and the fact that we've seen just these stupid mistakes, like 6 games out of 8, conceding early, over adjusting sometimes. Like we killed Jova for not adjusting. I feel like Terim overly changes things too much sometimes, to where it's and to Chris's point too, he's older now. Like I love the pool, but it's like number one, it's harsh. He didn't win the title, like what was promised, right? Which again, that was a harsh expectation, but you fired the coach to send the sentiment. So he didn't win the title. That's number one.
He was also saying it himself, by the way, Terim.
Yeah,
It wasn't just.
Yeah, he came in and he was saying like, I'm gonna win the title. And another thing too that was a little bit, and can I blame him? But it's like, I don't care if we concede 5 a game, we're gonna score 6 or 7. Like we're gonna attack. Like there's some things that he was saying too that didn't like line up with how we've ended the season either. That I didn't like either.
And you just got blanked back-to-back games over 180 minutes, and you're talking about scoring 5. Like,
and it's like, and then the games against, I think was a Kifisial, or we didn't take. It was kind of like we didn't take it serious. It looked like
that's what I got fucking PTSD from those games right now because those 2 games, it was the Kifisia and the Lamia game at the end of the season, end of February. We drew those games back to back. We dropped effectively 4 points back to back, and guess how many points we're off the top right now? 4 points. So
4 points.
Again, you can look at any place in the season and say, okay, we drop points here, we drop points there, we drop points there. Sure, whatever. Like you could do that over all 36 games, but those back-to-back games were very winnable because they were back-to-back games at Leoforos against bottom teams. Okay, I know Lamia's ended up being a playoff team, but very winnable games.
Yeah.
And then we dropped 4 points there, and now with 2 games left in the playoffs, we're 4 points behind. If we had 2 of those 4 points, not even all 4, 2 of those 4 points, we'd still be in this title race.
And the thing. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'll just add this point. And the thing too is like we were killing Ivan too for not getting points in the derbies this year. But the thing is, like the years past, how Panathinaikos lost titles was we weren't winning against the quote unquote, I'm just gonna call them like the minnow teams. I mean, look at Terim was dropping points to these minnow teams that we should have been winning. Yeah, he's beating the Ajax, he's beating the PAOs, but it's like he still lost games against them. Plus, he lost games against the Lamias and the Kifisias. So it's like, I don't know. It just all that kind of adds up to me, and I'm just like, whatever.
It goes back to my point as well of, by the way, there was also the offer game that we dropped points. That's 6 points against,
That's right.
Teams that we should have been. And I remember in a previous pod, Alex, when I listened, you said about the 2-2 with Lamia. We're annoyed, but it's okay if you fix it. I don't want this to happen again, and it happens again the next game. And not only that, but it just goes back to my point earlier about losing instead of drawing. If Terim is going to be amazing in the derbies, all right, I'm not saying you have to win all of them. You have to win most of them, because that's the expectation you set. But how many has he lost? He's lost a couple of times to PAOK. He's lost to Ike
I
now.
have his
You've got to
he's
start drawing.
He's 3-3-2 in the regular season. That's obviously starting in January when he came. He's 3-3-2. That's 3 games against PAOK, 3 games against Olympiacos, 1 game against AEK, and 1 game against ARIS. 3-3-2, and he's 3-3 now. 3 wins, 3 losses in the playoffs, and
See,
that's 2 against ARIS, 2 against AEK, 1 against Olympiacos, 1 against PAOK.
and that ain't good enough. You've got to turn those. That's 5 losses. Turn 4 of them into draws, and we would be. Oh my goodness! There you go. We would be tied. You know, even if you turn 3 of them, we'd be 1 point off. This is. I just think the mentality of the team is weak, as we've been mentioning.
It grows beyond the coach. Honestly, like we could bring Klopp in next year, and it's we've seen for years. Like it's just beyond the coach. It's we'll sack him. My whole reasoning for it again is I'd rather just get it done now and sack him now, because what's gonna happen is he's probably gonna start off like hot. We're gonna fizzle out. We're gonna fire him like December, and we're just gonna do it all again. So just sack him. Bring in the new guy that you're gonna bring in for the year, however long he's gonna last. Then it's gonna be a revolving door. So we know it's gonna happen eventually. Just get it done now, in my opinion. Give the new guy the summer, and then hasta. That's just how it is.
Well, the only thing I'll say to that before we move on is, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, when Terim came in, didn't he also bring in a couple guys and put him into positions that just weren't
Akaidi,
a
even
job?
put him right winger.
No,
like
I'm talking about personnel, like technical director and all that, because wasn't Jovanovic was kind of the playing both, or sporting director and coach, or he was basically doing 2 roles in one. And I think Terim came in and assigned guys in personnel on the staff getting jobs like that. I'm pretty sure he at least gave 1 guy. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because the only reason I'd say keep him is because you still keep in a guy that has football. He brought in a guy to fill in these gaps. You know, he can't fix everything in a half season and still run the team and win a Pro tournament. Like, that's just not realistic. That would be my only thing, is keeping him, giving the summer, like we said. But I would have hope that he would at least be able to hire people into roles that need to be there. Because before with Jovanovic, he was doing this and the coach, and it's like you can't have him doing both.
This season though, we got Papa Dimitriou he kind of took over the role that's what Jovanovic was doing the season before.
My point stands moot then at that point, if that's who we're talking about, but that's fine.
So yeah, because Papa Dimitriou is technically the technical director, and that's what Jovanovic was doing his first season. From what I remember, he was kind of acting in that double role. But this season going in, or I think it was maybe midway last season when Papa Dimitriou came in, and Terim, I know what you're talking about, Alki. He brought in, it wasn't like a sporting director. I think it was some type of like sport personnel guy that like they're mentioning it. Something, I think it's about like their health and their diet and all that stuff. And he watches their sort of like development in that area. So that is important. But like in terms of like directors and stuff like that, I think that's Papa Dimitriou right now kind of running things. So, I mean, we'll see what's going to happen with that even. I don't know what the heck's going to happen, guys. Like, people are saying, like, next season the fans are done. I don't know how true that is. I mean, like, people are saying, like, there's not even going to be fans.
Haven't heard truer Greek words in my life, bro.
Yeah. So, I mean, for all we know, like, the fans are done. Like, the fans are we're going to see an opposite of basketball, where there was no fans the last year, 2-3 years. Now we're going to see it gone in the football, it looks like. And they're going to the basketball.
I'm curious what our record is behind closed doors. It might be better for us anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's basically everything we got for the FC. Just to summarize, you know, we need a miracle for the league. Fortunately, we still have the cup. By the way, that I guess this is a piece of news. Today it came out that EPO announced that the cup will be played on the 25th of May, which was expected. It's getting pushed from the 18th to the 25th. And it will more likely than not be at Pantesaliko, which is Vola Stadium, behind closed doors. Again, this is all stuff that we basically knew was coming, but it's becoming more confirmed as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, fortunately, we do have the cup, despite the disappointment in the league. And at the end of the day, you know, we're gonna be one of the two teams probably that wins a trophy this year in Greece. So it's not something to be taken for granted either. Like I know it feels so bad that we've lost out in the league, but you know, ARIS is not going to win the league. So the winner from the league is going to come out from AEK, Olympiacos, or PAOK, and the winner of the cup is going to come from another team. So two teams get trophies this year, and we have a chance to be one of those two teams. So it is, you know, something to, I guess, keep positively. At least that's how I'm thinking about it.
It's so tight.
But we'll talk about the cup when it comes closer. It's still, you know, almost a month away. But now let's transition, unless any of you guys have anything else to talk about with the FC, let's transition to the BC, where it's happier days. We find ourselves in the first round of the playoffs, tied 1-1 with Maccabi Tel Aviv. We went down 1-0 last Tuesday in a kind of a heartbreaking game. We lost, I think, 91-87, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Where we controlled that game for a long time, and then they kind of just snagged it at the end. And then on Thursday, we came back and we had a pretty convincing win, won by double digits to even up the series 1-1. There were ups and downs in that game too, but ultimately we kind of squashed that last push from Maccabi, which they had in that first game against us. What do we see go on that game? I mean, we could talk about both games. We could talk about the Thursday game. Anything you guys want?
There's one thing I want to point out actually, which I think was a big difference in both games. It's Bonzi Colson. He's the X factor for them, and he burned us both times we played them in the regular season. I think he averages 9 points a game, and I think he hit 15 points and above in both games in the regular season, maybe even higher. And the main reason for that is Grigonis. We've all said it in the chat. He does not defend. He's a good 3-point shooter and stuff. He doesn't close out either. Doesn't rebound. So in game one, Colson had 20 and had like 13 in the fourth quarter or something. It was a joke. He was hitting triple threes and whatever. In game two, Papapetru played most of the game, held Colson to 6 points off really bad efficiency. So I think this is something that Ataman will 100% know, and I think you can expect Papapetru to play in these next two more, and it's just about hopefully, you know, getting at least one in Belgrade, because I read a stat today which is at home, game 5, home teams 18-0. A road team has not won. I believe that's in the modern day Euroleague since 2000. Road team has not won a game 5, so it's pivotal to at least get that game 5 in the Oaxaca.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, especially the Papapetru point. Like, I noticed that Ataman was starting to bring him more into the lineup, of course, after he returned from his injury. What we saw in that Olympiacos game, I think it was in the league game that we won. Papapetru came in and he plays a lot more defense. He's a much more defensive-oriented wing than like Grigonis is. Grigonis is a good player to bring in, I guess, when it's a little more open. You need some threes, but Papapetru can kind of provide that physicality. He's not that good of a shooter, but I mean, again, I'd rather have that defensive player on that end of the floor than I would, because we have none. We have scores. We got none. We got Sluka. Lesor can get a basket. Mitoglu can get a basket. You know,
even Grant as well.
Yeah, so we we're able to run those schemes. We're able to get those points. So it's just good to get some defensive-minded guys in there, especially in the EuroLeague.
Yeah,
we need to defend, like close out on the three, because that's where we can really get.
Defense wins championships, and especially against this Maccabi team, they are ranked number 1 in offense. But the weird thing is their field goal and 3-point percentage aren't that high, but they've got the best rebounding team in the league. Nebo, this guy gets so many rebounds. They have the most offensive rebounds, etc. And Grigonis does not rebound the ball. So it's literally simple. Game 1, we lost. I'm not even going to say the rebounds. We lost because of free throws, but also a few rebounds. Did you see how many plays there were in the fourth quarter where they would get like 4 shots in one play? That cannot happen anymore. We have to really crack down on that. The free throws, I truly believe, was a bit of a slump in both game 1s and 2s. We can fix that. You know, that's down to the players more. The rebounding is more from a tactical point of view, and we've really got to. And I think I'm hoping that we will analyze that and understand like how not to get out rebounded like that, because the second chance point difference in game 1 and 2 was a big difference. So I'm hoping we really crack down on it in game 2, and we'll continue to do that in game 3 and 4, because Baldwin as well, I've read, is questionable for game 3.
I think he's gonna play. I think he's gonna play.
I mean,
Well,
it's the
there you
playoffs.
go.
There's no way he doesn't play, but
Yeah, good
I
point.
mean, like you guys said, just take care of the ball. The turnovers kills us because we give them the ball, we're giving them opportunity to score, and we're going to get out rebounded. But like you guys said, defense wins championship, but defense leads to offense. That's why guys like Papa Petru and even Juancho, unfortunately, he's out. They play good defense. You're going to get open looks on offense. And if you're not scoring, they're still facilitating in some way, making the passes, getting Lasor open, getting Slukas open. The perimeter defense is always the killer because, like Chris said, I mean, they're the highest, they got the best offense because they've got 3 very capable scoring guards. And then you've got, I forgot his name already, but he was hitting all those threes, Bonzi. So, I mean, if you shut down one of them, you're good to go. That's why we were so good in game 2. Took out Nebo. They had no rebounding. Bonzi
Nebo got
couldn't
into
get
foul trouble,
going.
I believe, as well.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Take him out of the game, just not letting him
Yeah.
be an X factor. And Bonzi, he was kind of hot and cold, and we were just outplaying them. Where he's a streaky player, but you take those two, and you can take the whole game to him because there's no way Maccabi's going to be shooting like they did in game 1. That's not happening. We didn't see it game 2. We didn't let Brown get those open looks in game 2 either. But that's all going to be really, really reliant on, like you guys said, the defense, and Papa Petru steps up again. That he's the X factor in this series, I think, because if you don't get that wing perimeter defense, it's going to be game over. Because Nunn is okay; he's average on defense. Grigonis, he's a liability. Vildoza, very spotty minutes, hit and miss. That's 3 guys that Ataman is playing heavy minutes sometimes, where they're a liability on defense and they can't guard,
Well,
unfortunately.
Jerry and Grant is a very good defender, which is one really good thing. I think he's one of my defensive players of the year. I think he should definitely be in the top 5,
Oh, absolutely.
If
But
not,
he wasn't even an X factor in game 2 because he barely had to
no,
play.
he wasn't. But my point is, with that pick and roll that they play, he could become key in these next 2 games. And if you have him playing with Slukas, at least he kind of covers for Slukas more. But when you have, like, I don't know, let's say you've got Nunn and Vildoza on at the same time, that is
And
where they're
Slukas,
going to
that's
score.
Ataman likes to play
Yeah,
the 3 guards. That's the
yeah,
problem.
exactly.
If you're
Exactly.
throwing 3 guards, Grant has to be out there because he
Yeah,
covers up for
I
one of the other 2 guys, like you
completely
said,
agree.
Chris.
Exactly, completely agree. And he gets the second most steals on average in the Euroleague, which is huge. You want to be good in fast break points. Maccabi do not turn over the ball that much as well. I think they're one of the best in like not turning it over.
Yep.
But we're one of the best in forcing turnovers. So there are just a few stats here that are just going to be super key. Turnovers, rebounds, free throws. Those are the main 3 things. You want to always win the hustle stats. That's why, for example, in the NBA, you just saw what the Knicks beat the Sixers. They out rebounded them. Especially in the fourth quarter, we were getting 4 shots in one play sometimes. We were almost purposely missing because we realized we weren't going to get a better shot just to get the rebound. That can't be Maccabi, is my point. That's what it was in game 1. I cannot see that again because they will just inevitably win that game then.
That was the difference between game 1 and 2. You brought it up.
Oh, hell yeah, yeah.
Apart from specific players, I think also Slukas was the big one, that he was nothing in game 1, and then in game 2 he was literally MVP Slukas.
He got 13 assists in game 1, which is his career high. So let's not take that away from him.
But other than that, the free throws and the rebounding, like we were about 60% the first game in free throw, and then the second game I don't have the stats, but it was definitely higher than that. And then the rebounding wasn't perfect in the second game, but it was definitely better than what we saw in game 1. So that was the difference there, in my opinion.
Yeah, we just took better shots in game 2, honestly. Like our half court offense just looked so much better. And Slukas may have not had as many assists, but I think just kind of like we've banged on it all season long, Antoni, is just having him run that offense just changes everything. I mean, it's unfortunate Nunn has been a complete non-factor in these 2 games, but I'd rather that happen. I think this kind of a matchup nightmare for him more than anything, because we know he's going to get his scoring any day of the week.
Yeah.
At least he hasn't been playing hero ball as well, as we say.
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
that's something that
now that Slukas has been playing really well, it's eliminated Nun's hero ball. But a non-factor, I wouldn't completely say. He still scored like 10 or 11 points in game 3. Yeah, it's not, sorry, in game 2.
I
It's
say
not Kendrick Nunn.
I say X Factor, yeah, it's not Kendrick Nunn just because we're spoiled to the fact that we're usually seeing him
No, yeah,
score
of course.
15, 18,
Yeah.
20 points a game. We're not used to seeing
No,
Slukas
I know.
drop a career high in a
Yeah.
freaking
Yeah.
playoff game where if he wasn't if we didn't have Slukas even score 15 of those points, the game would have been very, very different.
But you can also take into consideration that someone else may have chipped in. You know,
Yeah, of course. And that's
yeah.
why I'm saying Slukas chipped in because Nunn was just kind of
Nunn.
taken out of the element or just wasn't the guy like we're used to.
But them guarding him so closely, because they are, I mean, it's pretty obvious, opens up space. And now, if Nunn
Finding
emerges in
those
game
people.
3, it's going to just emerge more space. And that's the thing with us. We've got so many good scoring options that I'm just hoping we need to win one in Belgrade, man. If not both, but I've seen
we'll win both.
Maccabi,
I
they
have
have
full
some
faith
other
we'll
apps.
win
I've
both.
seen there are quite a few fans there. I saw a video of them like chanting with them today or something off the bus. It's not going to be like super hostile like they would normally have, but I think game 3 is the really important one. I want to take control of the series. I don't want to always be playing catch up.
So just to your points, and I know you want to say something, Antoni, but just to your point, Chris, right now. So I think they were about. It's a big plus for us that we don't have to play them at their actual home. Of course, they're going to have limited fans. I think they were saying as little as 300 or as many as 1,000. But you know, even 1,000 is obviously way better than what it could be under normal circumstances. So we're fortunate in that sense. It'll still be, you know, it's still an away game, but you know they don't have the best circumstances in their own perspective either. So that's a plus for us. Antoni.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to the Nunn point as well. Something to keep note of about Nunn as well that I've really picked up on as well is when teams target him, he really does tend to struggle. And I get what Alki was saying with that, you know, that 10 points, 11 points. For Nunn, that is a little bit of a struggle, right? Because we've seen it, especially, I noticed that he tends to struggle against Olympiacos, which Olympiacos plays a similar style, like defensive scheme as Maccabi does on Nunn. And, you know, perhaps through adjustments, maybe we'll see him kind of come to life. It's good that Sluka stepped in and filled in that role because when Nunn does get targeted, the easy thing that I've noticed with him for this season is that he once you kind of get him frustrated, that's the idea of the opponent. So, that's the idea of the opponent. So they try to frustrate him, and once you kind of get in his head, you get his disruption. You know, you kind of disrupt the flow of his game. That's when his offense does tend to stagnate, and that's we'll see a lack of hero ball, quote unquote, but. You know, like I saw him chirping back and forth with that one guard on Maccabi, just like he did with Thomas Walkup as well when he said that Thomas Walkup can't guard him, and then he ended up getting locked up by Thomas Walkup. So, like, I feel like he has the words, but sometimes like it gets into his head, and then that's when he kind of comes out of his state. And I think Maccabi's picked up on that because when we played them in the regular season, that's something that I noticed was a lot of frustrations on their defensive schemes on Nunn in particular.
Yeah, he just hasn't played as much high risk, high reward, I think, in the playoffs. Obviously, it's only been 2 games, but even though he's been a non-factor, we haven't seen him be as he's been much more analytical and careful with the ball and picking and choosing when he's gonna try to pass or shoot. I think he's been a lot better than if this was a regular season. I'd say he'd try a little bit more or try to be a little bit more aggressive, try the hero ball. But I think he's got that kind of on a tight lock. But on the same topic of word on the street is that he's going to be extending with us. Did you guys see that news?
Yeah, I did see that. But it you know, it goes back to, I think it was like a car video that DPG was making. I can't remember the song, but it was something about like Katsezo or something, and he was saying non Katsezo Bada or something like that. You're not going anywhere or something. So who knows like what that means, but it has been up in the air for a while, especially after that Bologna game when he hit the buzzer beater. There has been negotiations. He's openly expressed how much he wants to stay, how much he's enjoyed his time, and how much he's just enjoyed the love. So it would be great, but at the same time, we all know if an NBA contract comes for like 2 years and he's getting paid 10 mil,
he's said as much. he said as much. He's like, he's basically said like, at my age, like you got to start thinking about like the contract and the money, like.
Which is fair enough. I understand.
Which is fair enough. I'm not gonna like, go off on him if he goes to the NBA. It's understandable, and it's the obviously the pinnacle of this sport. The question is just, and we've talked about this before. The question is, do you want to be a role player in the NBA and make more money, or do you want to have a star role?
I don't see it happening, him going back to NBA. I think that's his ultimate goal, but I think just given the market, the way it works, and how guys in his position, the position he plays, it's so unstable. Unless he gets a guaranteed contract, which he might be cut, traded, and then he's kind of SOL. I think knowing that he's going to be a star and guaranteed minutes, easier life, you could say, whatever. There's lots of factors. I personally, my hunch is he's going to end up staying in
He
Europe.
likes the ego boost as well of being the best, which isn't a bad thing. You always want to be the best.
He's great.
But I
He's a
think
great
he's
player. I
enjoyed it.
think, yeah, he can definitely still make it in the NBA. I just don't think he would be seen to the same level of what he is in Europe, honestly.
I'm a little more worried about like another European giant kind of swooping in and stealing him from us than I am about the NBA prop.
Yeah, me too.
1000%.
I've heard of Fes are going to offer him big time, but they don't worry me as much. But it is, again, as you said, other teams. I would consider him a traitor if he went to another European team, especially with everything he said. You do not want that to happen, but if it does, you need to know soon, because you need to think then, okay, right, what do we do next? Because we need a real good scorer guard. It doesn't look like Mitch is going to be coming back from the NBA, so you need to kind of like lock down on whether Kendrick Nunn is going to be with you next season. You need to lock down on that soon.
He's not gonna go to another European team unless it's Real Madrid or it's Barcelona, because I remember reading Panathinaikos has the top 3 budget in Europe right now in Euroleague for this past season. So DPG is, he's paying Slukas 10 million. 34-year-old Slukas, he's gonna pay None. I can't see.
Oh no, he absolutely will.
FS is good, but also like realize too, they might be desperate because of this. They've just, they fired their coach. They're having a pretty bad season. Larkin's probably gonna leave. So it's like, let me back up a little bit. I'm not sure for 100% that Larkin is gonna leave, but the way that it's kind of pointing to, Larkin is Real Madrid. So
yeah.
Oh,
maybe they'll pay the money to fill the gap for him towards Nunn, but for Nunn, the thing is too, his first season in the EuroLeague, his first season overseas, he's finally made himself comfortable. Why are you going to lift yourself all the way up, uproot your life, go to Turkey, try to learn things all over again to a team that's more unstable than us? It just doesn't. Everything
well,
we have.
I think DPG's proven that he's not scared to spend, and he will throw money at you or at anybody, and he wants to win. And I think at the end of the day, like, Nunn being a superstar in Europe is obviously the top thing, but that's going to earn him the most money. And like the outside of the top 2, like you mentioned, Antoni, like who else really would you? Maybe Monaco, because you're in France. Monaco, they're always competing, but like those are the only 3 teams I
did hear Monaco's name pop up actually, but
yeah, because that's based on assuming they're thinking Mike James might be leaving too.
Monaco think he is, though.
Monaco was the team that gave him the blank check allegedly, right?
Yeah.
That was a couple of months back. Yeah,
Monaco, I also think for them it just wouldn't work. Like, not that I care about them, I only care about us. But Nunn and James as backcourt, that would be great.
Well, it'd be assuming Mike James leaves, is I think why the rumors there.
I don't think he's leaving. I think he's extending with Monaco.
They're too similar. Like, one of them's gonna have to take a lesser role. That's the thing, though, because the thing
and they both have big egos.
Nunn. The thing is, Nunn likes playing with Slukas because Slukas is fine with sharing the ball. Like they've mentioned, they don't mind taking turns. Mike James and Nunn are 2 similar type players. They're offensive oriented guards, both of them. So they're not really the facilitating type of guards. So it's just going to be weird. It's too redundant. For Nunn, obviously money's the big factor, which we can afford unless somehow the NBA does come calling. I'm talking about just European teams. We've got the money. He's got the fit. He's comfortable here. We've got the coach. We're competing for a EuroLeague title. Like, there's just too many things. Like, he'd have to
not want to stay.
Yeah, like you'd have to really, like, something has to like screw up for him to want to leave, in my opinion.
Another player I wanted to ask you guys on, which is Coots' favorite player, is Hezonja. Would you bring in Hezonja?
Wasn't he
Yeah,
like basically rumored or linked that it's almost basically a done deal?
Yeah, but
yeah.
so no, like I guess I'm asking, are you happy about that? Because he is sometimes a liability on defense.
I mean, I think if you're assuming Juancho's gone, I'd say I'm not opposed to it. I mean, we need that his position, him and Papa Petru like play similarly and they're a like for like substitution type of thing. You split their minutes, so I don't mind it. I just worry it's one of those like it becomes one of those things where you gave him too big of a contract and he doesn't live up to it. You know,
Yeah,
I've always said all season, whatever opinions aside, I think Hazonia right now, he's a European phenom because of his time in the NBA. And as a youngster coming up, he was like really touted as like a top player. But I think his production right now is more so just because he's playing with Real. I think he can get similar results, but I don't see him shooting 6 threes and the efficiency he's at right now. I don't see that
neither. You
happening
also have to remember because
anywhere outside of them.
Real have so many amazing players that like you can't
Exactly.
put your attention to one player. He's gonna get more wide open looks in Real. But
Exactly.
with that being said, I think he would be good for us and a big
Yeah.
upgrade. He's a bit similar to Grigonis, but he's definitely an upgrade. He's got more inside the paint game, and
He's a more complete player than Grigonis for sure.
he's played for us as well. You know he'd give it all for the badge, and I'm as you said, I'm definitely not opposed to it, but you've got to definitely play Papa Petru then a lot as well because if you rotate with Hezonja and Grigonis and barely Papa Petru, that is a problem in terms of defense wise.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember too. I mean, this was a couple years ago. Papa Petru was the captain of the team. Again, it was different circumstances at the time, but just like I mean, in any sport, really, the more competition, the better, in my opinion. So, I mean, if we add in a third guy there, a third wing, let's say Juancho does leave, so Hezonja fills in that Juancho spot. Juancho's been good defensively, like especially the last month or so, like towards the end of this regular EuroLeague campaign. But Hezonja, again, he doesn't have that defensive acumen, but he does have a more of an offensive bag. I mean, when he played with us, again, I mean, we were terrible. Let's be honest. I mean, he did, he was pretty decent. So that'd be a welcome addition. I mean, you don't play for Real Madrid. I've said it before. If if you're not good, so I would definitely take Hezonja. I mean, I that's the meme in the group that I'm a big Hezonja fan, but it's a reason. It's a reason, and he played good. If he was playing for like let's say Prometheus or something, okay, I'd be like, all right. But he's playing for Real Madrid, so he's no, the guy's legit.
He's definitely a great player.
Yeah, like what you guys have all been saying the same thing, and I agree. Like he's a scorer. He brings like obviously a plus offense aspect to the thing. Defensively is a question mark. I was watching the highlights in Real Madrid's last game. I think it was their second playoff game where he hit it was a logo three, but it was that side logo.
Yeah.
It wasn't the middle logo, and then he got ejected in the same game. So I was like, this is kind of funny. But like, just focusing on that, the side logo three, like that was a deep three. And again, I agree with what Alki said. You shouldn't expect him to, to be shooting like 50% from three or something if he comes to us, because it's a different story than what he has, alongside him in Real Madrid. But he is a scorer, so I don't.
Yeah.
I would welcome him for sure.
Well, and to counter that point, I think Alki like disconnected, but he'll probably be back. To counter that point as well, I mean, we're the second best team. I mean, just per regular season. So I mean, perhaps that production could have continued too. It's not like if he came to us, it's not like he'd be significantly downgrading. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I mean, he possibly could. I mean, because we'd have Slukas, we'd have Nan, we'd have Mitoglu out there. Like we'd have like attention on other guys as well. Plus, we'd be adding Hezonja on top of it, where he'd kind of be filling that Juancho role, where we thought people would be we thought Juancho would be hitting those threes and those shots consistently. So I mean, you never know really. The production may take a dip, but it also could sustain too. You never know.
So In order to wrap up our basketball talk, unless you guys have anything else to talk about, let's go back to the series, because we got game 3 tomorrow. For those that are not as familiar with the format, it's 5-game series, not a 7-game series like they do in the NBA. So we had 2 home games in Oaxaca, then we have 2 away games. They're going to be played in Belgrade because of the situation in Israel. And then that game 5, if necessary, is going to be in back in Oaxaca because we are the high seed. So this week, Tuesday, Thursday, back-to-back games, Belgrade away. So let's talk about predictions. I'll start with you, Chris. What do you see happening in these 2 games? What do you think our record is going to be in these 2 games? And yeah, what can we expect in your eyes?
Obviously, normally I've been playing this out so many times, in my head, and it is very difficult to predict. And I do want to say, yeah, we'll get it done in Belgrade, but that's unrealistic for me. So I don't know who's going to win which game, but it may be boring. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 split, and then hopefully we win game 5 in Oaxaca. But who knows?
Antoni, what do you think?
Yeah, in a realistic world, I could see a split, but honestly, I think that game 2 win was really big. The way that we finished off, we might carry over the momentum. I'm just gonna say 2-0. We finished them off.
I know
Okay.
Alki. I remember Alki in the chat. I don't know if he's connected or not, but I do remember him saying he actually thinks we're gonna win both games in Belgrade.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll give him a
good.
chance to come back. Maybe he can give his own perspective. But in the meantime, I'll say that I think it's also going to be a split. I think given what we saw in the first 2 games, I think a split is, like you said, Chris, kind of the boring answer, maybe the more predictable answer. I think we're good enough to win both games, but you have to keep in mind that Baldwin is coming back. That's going to be a big reinforcement for them. They didn't have Baldwin in the second game. I'm not saying that's the reason we won. I think we could beat them with or without Baldwin, but that is something to consider that, we did beat them in game 2 without Baldwin. And by the way, in game 1, they finished us off without Baldwin. Baldwin did not
Yeah,
play the ending of game 1, and that's when they closed the door on us. They made their comeback and sealed the deal without Baldwin. So they've shown that they could win and lose without Baldwin.
because
So
Colson and Brown were super hot at that moment in time as well. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
yeah, of course. But that's what kind of concerns me a little bit with Baldwin coming back, and depending on how Carlson and Brown fared too, I think they could, definitely. I think they have the ability to actually win both games and not even send this back to Athens. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is a quality team. Like we echoed this in our last pod before the series kicked off. Like this is a better team than a play-in team, honestly. Like they're only 3 games worse than us record-wise in the regular season. We had 23 wins and they had 20 wins. Um, so I know that the seeding makes it seem like there's a big disparity, but like record-wise and quality-wise, it's not as big of a disparity as you might think a 2 versus 7 seed is. So we were cautious about them in the beginning. We're at 1-1 right now. I'm still cautious about them. I think either team has the ability to take the next 2 games, which is kind of why I see it kind of going right down the middle as 1-1.
Yeah, yeah. They're in terms of matchup, they're kind of like they would remind me of like a Žalgiris matchup where they're like kind of like a trap team in a way. They play very physical. They play very disruptive. And they could just get hot and explode from 3 at any time. So I 100% like get why you guys are saying 1-1 for sure, because anything can happen. Like, to those points that you made, they didn't have Baldwin in the first game. Lorenzo Brown stepped up, and we know what he can do. With him likely returning tomorrow, I mean, yeah, it can certainly be a challenge. It's gonna be trouble. I hope none will kind of find his form a little bit, find his feet, and start scoring. And that should. I think if we can get none to elevate his game a little bit and play the way that we've seen him this regular season, then we'll be good. We'll be okay.
There was also some drama post game after game 2,
yeah.
which I had forgotten about up until now, but I guess it's a good thing to talk about. Just to summarize for those that don't know, there was like a altercation in the it wasn't the locker room, but it was like in the hallway inside Oaxaca. Apparently, a person from the Maccabi team We don't know if it was player or staff or anything. There were no names pointed out. Made a comment towards Ataman. He said that you'll see you'll see what'll happen to you in Israel. You'll see what the Zionists will do to you. And Ataman addressed it in his post game interview. Without getting too specific about it. Do you do you guys see that off the court stuff affecting how this series plays out?
I think it's just a reflection of how fiery the games have been. Kind of like, even when we played them in the regular season, they're a chippy team. Like Katash, he's the coach of Maccabi. I mean, he was the coach of Panathinaikos a couple years ago. I mean, he has those guys playing. He has those guys playing intense. So I think it's just a lot of that tension boiling over from the court onto the onto the off the court stuff. Which again, it's just some of the stuff that's said. It's just ridiculous. Like, I sent a screenshot of the quote to my uncle, and I'm just like, he's not really too big into Greek sports as much as I am, and I'm like, can you imagine like seeing something like this like in the NBA? Like the Lakers just like got swept, and like Jokic is like, yeah, you'll see in Belgrade what we'll do to you. Like, you're not gonna like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't see, like, sometimes like European sports just make me like scratch my head because I'm like, this is just like, this turned into something serious over a freaking basketball game. Like, what the heck is this? So yeah, I just think it's just this tension boiling over, and I hope like it stays on the court, nothing stupid happens. But yeah, that was just kind of
that's something I don't want now, like a stupid bust up, or like Katash and Ataman going like head to head, or the players or something. I don't want to see that happening. I just play the game normally. I'm sure both teams will want it. And in answer to your question, Alex, I don't think it will massively impact the series. Ataman may have been exaggerating, who knows, but it was probably a water under the bridge the next morning. Who knows?
Yeah, I have the same hope as you guys. Hopefully we just kind of, in a weird way, reminds me of conversations we had with the FC. Like in the derbies, we want it resolved on the pitch in 90 minutes, no reffing controversy, and now we kind of like inevitably started talking about it in the BC. But I don't know, whatever. You bring up a good point, Antoni. Like the shit that happens in European sports, like you just can't make it up, and you'd never see it in American sports. It's just completely different. But I also wanted, before I forget, I also wanted to shout out Costa Kumpo, because he had a little something going on at the end of the game in game 2, where he had that the block at the buzzer, completely unnecessary too. Block at the buzzer, we were up by 16, and then the stare down. I forgot who was on the receiving end of that for the
Cleveland.
Cleveland for Maccabi. But that was just, I watched that on repeat all night that night. I was just playing it back and back and back, because that was fucking cold, and it was completely unnecessary but hilarious at the same time. And I guess that's kind of almost kind of where the drama started, because like there was like a little animosity after that, because that was the end of the game, and then it I think bled into what happened in the hallways of Oaxaca. But yeah, that's just something to look.
Did you guys see the fan who messaged Cleveland as well?
No, I didn't.
He basically
messaged. He said that I saw it, yeah.
He basically messaged him saying, as a Panathinaikos fan, I respect you. I really like you. In fact, I have you as my wallpaper. Can I show you? And Cleveland says yes. And the wallpaper is Costas like staring him down. It's crazy.
Blocking him. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
It's a great picture. I saved the picture on my phone too. I don't have my phone here, but I have it saved. Let's see if I can get it just for everyone to see.
If you can share it on the thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen.
That was Antonius Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
That's I remember him.
Good player, that guy, actually. Good defender.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Yeah, Maccabi's got some players, man. They've got some decent players.
Even just Blatt and Riviero, these Cohan, these guys will come in and give you good minutes.
Yeah. No,
they're 100%. They're deep. And these guys,
they're a scrappy team. They're a scrappy team for sure. That's the thing I like about the Euroleague. There's a lot of these scrappy teams that they can pull wins out of nowhere. I mean, we've got the Partisans, we've got Maccabis, we've got these Žalgiris. I mean, I know they missed the playoffs,
Yeah.
but you know, they're these little scrappy sides.
Yeah, Olympiacos as well, to be honest, actually.
Olympiacos has a good team.
I tried to share
Yeah.
the screen, but it's not letting me. It says it wants to restart the app, so I don't want to fuck it up with the
Oh,
recording. But anyway, go check out that picture. It's a hilarious picture. It's Costas is literally like towering over the other guy, and Cleveland on Maccabi's like it's hilarious. It's a funny picture. But yeah, I think that's all we got. You know, we got BC this week, like we said, Tuesday, Thursday, game 3 and 4. Both of those are in Belgrade. Hopefully, we either finish the job or we at least send it back to Oaxaca for a game 5. And in terms of FC, there's not another game for a long time. This is you know, Holy Week for Greece. There's Easter on Sunday, so there's nothing going on. So I think the next game is in about 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks from yesterday, Sunday. So we got a drought in FC, probably for the better, so we don't have to think about that misery. But yeah, just all eyes on basketball. There's a Final Four appearance on the line. I think that's it. I don't know what else we have on the docket. You know, rate the podcast 5 stars if you guys can. We really appreciate it, and it really helps you know, grow the following, and you know, it's really important for us. We're active on social media. Twitter is the most active that we are. Go follow the account, look at the posts. You know, Instagram too, Facebook, everything, but the main one is Twitter. You know, stay in touch, interact, comment at us, let us know. And that's it. This is the American Boys plus Chris. Thank you, Chris, for being here.
You.
And we will see you whenever we see you, because of the FC break. We don't know when the next pod will be, but we'll see you when we see you. Goodbye, everyone.